Alright, day 2 of the Blast Spring Finals is in the books. The group stages are done. We have eliminated 2 more teams and we have set the stage for the quarterfinals beginning tomorrow. So today, we'll be breaking down all of our matches, taking a close look at the teams who look to make a deep run here, and everything in between. There's not that much more to say, so let's cut the pomp and circumstance and get right into the recap. As soon as you guys take a second and leave a like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It helps out immensely in the YouTube algorithm, and many of you who watch these videos are not subscribed, so make sure you do it. And while you are down there, consider becoming a channel member. For $5 a month, you can support me directly in what we do here, gain access to normal videos the night before everyone else, as well as a shout out at the end of every video. And lastly, check me out on Twitch, twitch.tv/LionHeartZ13337. I stream Sunday through Friday, 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We're playing Counter-Strike, sometimes we're playing Destiny, but no matter what, we're sitting there wondering how the hell I just missed that shot. So make sure you come on by and say hi. With that out of the way, let's get started with our first match of the day. And that would be Saw taking on Astralis in our first elimination match. And listen, we're just going to call a spade here. As good as Saw has the potential to be, they simply ran into a brick wall. Astralis are better man for man than what Saw can bring to the table right now, and even if Device is not yet a tenured in-game leader, thus far he's off to a great start of establishing himself as one of the best in the world. And despite all predictions that it might weigh him down, the extra responsibilities aren't slowing him down as an individual player, which means this roster, bro aside, is actually pretty deep and really talented. So when everything is firing on all cylinders for Astralis, they are honestly looking like one of the better teams in the top 10, which is scary because you can argue they are still one roster move away from really reaching their true potential. Now all of that is to say, Astralis absolutely bodied Saw in this series. It was 13-6 on Dust 2, it was 13-3 on Inferno, and at no point did Saw look like they had any clue what the hell to do to get themselves into the game and make any kind of significant run. They looked okay on Dust 2 for a couple of stretches, but at no point were they threatening to take over and try and threaten with a map win. It wasn't just that the strats were worse or that they couldn't execute on their T-sides, the fragging just simply couldn't keep up. When you look at the numbers for the series, nobody on Saw outfragged anybody on Astralis, and that is absolutely not going to leave you in a good spot to try and win. Like, bro is definitely the weakest piece on this Astralis team in my opinion, and he still had 20 kills across both maps, and that outfragged the lowest frag on Saw Gaming by 7 kills. So it's just, you're just not going to get anything going at that point. You Jerks and Eridas are normally players I would expect to put up decent numbers, and they tried their best, but neither of them could get close to above a 0.8 rating. It's just a simple case of being outclassed in every respect, which is why Astralis are going up to the playoffs and Saw are unfortunately going home. Moving on to our first real series of substance with some actual Counter-Strike to be talked about and analyzed on a significant level, we have Faze taking on Navi in yet another rematch of the Copenhagen Major Final. And this time, unlike their last matchup, Navi are definitely here to play. It feels like Navi are in this tournament with a huge chip on their shoulder and trying to prove to people that no, the Major wasn't necessarily a fluke, they can still hang and go deep in these tournaments. And honestly, right now they're making a good case for that, because here, they take down Faze in a 3-game series, and when you start to get into it, this wasn't even a Faze collapse like you could argue at the Major. Faze were in this series. Now on the first map, we go to Dust 2 and Navi banged them out 13-5, but honestly, I don't think Faze were prepped for Dust 2 whatsoever. I think this is a case where the map pools overlapped in a weird way that Faze decided to allow Dust 2 just to kind of see how it would play out. Because I think when you look at Faze's roster, they're a team that I think on paper should be fine to play Dust 2 to a decent level. I think it's too new and Kerrigan wasn't super prepped. I think that showed especially on the T-sides, where the T-side just didn't seem like they had anything that was going to work. The lockdown CT defense by Navi was too stifling, and Faze were unable to take any kind of proactive map control. For Navi, this is pretty much everything you would want to go right in a game. You have Bit popping off, he's the high fragger for the server with 22 kills and a 1.84 rating, but it's by no means a carry job. You have JL and Wonderful right behind him, not able to put up similar numbers, but they're maintaining high ratings, they're getting great picks, and then JL is good in the clutch as he has been throughout the entire year. One thing I really like from Navi on the CT side is their ability to lock down long A control. Maybe you might be familiar with the JL flash, which is obviously a flash that JL created to blind the long push, and they use it to great effect here to hold long and prevent Faze from getting out early into the A site and trying to take some map control. That duel around long A has gotten a lot more interesting in this version of Dust 2 with the new skyboxes, because now smokes are coming in from more angles trying to block off CT and T access. It's a lot more interesting than what it used to be, where people were just kind of throwing Molotovs and holding with ops. It's now a lot more common to see 3 CTs go to long A at the beginning of the round, which leads to this huge early battle, this exchange of flashbangs, nades, molotovs, and smokes. It's super chaotic, but also super entertaining to watch, and in this case, Navi pretty much won it every single time it happened. For Faze, other than the strat book looking really thin on the ground, the big thing is Rops. He has 7 kills, an absolute disaster. I mean, Kerrigan's out fragging your Rops, that's just unacceptable. You need to be the guy leading the way. You are the top dog in this team, and if you can't get kills along the margins and be that lurk presence on the T side and that incredible anchor presence on the CT, then Faze aren't ever going to be able to win anything. You have to be that guy, and today on Dust 2, he was not. So we're moving on to our next map, which ended up being Nuke, which is basically both of these teams' best maps. Obviously, Faze are probably the most tenured Nuke team in the world right now. They've played it more than anybody else, and honestly, just like Navi, they both consider it a home map. So this is a really interesting matchup because I actually think Alexi B calls a bit more interesting strats on the T side than Kerrigan does. I feel like Kerrigan is always kind of defined by this loose style where he wants to play around the outside of control, move his pieces outward, and play off the picks and the map control that his players are so good at taking, whereas I think Alexi B likes to play a bit more mind games, set up nades, wait out rounds, and try and draw out CT aggression. And when it's working, it feels like Navi will suffocate the CT side and force them to lose their rounds. So it was going to be interesting to see how Faze respond after taking such a beating on the first map, and then they walk out, they start off on the T side of Nuke, and they promptly win the half 9-3 in extremely dominant fashion. And here, Faze made Navi look silly on their defense. There was nothing Navi could do to stop Faze from taking map control. Faze took whatever they wanted, they took whatever space they wanted, and they took it freely, moving to the lower bomb site at will, making upper pushes, ramp pushes, outside pushes, moving into big garage to flank, while doing everything to limit Navi's ability to get an uncontested pick. The big thing here is that they kept Bit on a leash. Bit has been the best player for Navi in this tournament, and they limited him to 5 CT kills in the first half, forcing everyone else to step up. And while Alexi B, JL, and Wonderful did okay, the lack of Bit on the rifle to really take some space back when Wonderful got pushed off his oppie angles showed, which allowed Faze too much map control and too much time to wind down these rounds. The big thing for Faze here was everybody was online. This is a classic Faze game where all 4 of their players, who can each of them take over a game at will, got to eat at different points. The worst player on the map is Kerrigan with only 3 kills, but that doesn't matter when everyone else is at 15, 19, 18, 19, and you're just so dominant around those pieces that Kerrigan can be a non-factor. We swap sides in the second half, and Navi I think actually do well on their T side half, but honestly a 9-3 deficit on Nuke will always be such a hard thing to overcome. It doesn't matter how good your T-side strat book is, it's just so easy for the CTs to get one string of rounds going where they force a save that they don't have to do much to be able to close out the map in an MR12 format, and that's what happens here. Navi wins the T-pistol, they take the first 2, but then we get to the first proper gun round and Faze wins, they break the economy, Navi has to save, and then crucially, Faze wins the follow-up gun round, and now they're already at match point. They only have to win one more round. So even though Navi managed to go on a small streak of 3 rounds where their T-side looks really excellent, Faze only have to get 1. They only need 1 chance to close it out, and they do, which leads to a 13-9 victory, and we move on to Mirage as the decider. Now keep in mind, neither of these teams is playing for elimination right now. What they're playing for is a semi-final spot versus a quarterfinal spot. So losing doesn't mean you're out, it just means you have to play one more best of 3, and honestly, depending on your school of thought, your personal philosophy around tournament play, you might not want that day off. You might just want to stay hot and stay fresh and play through these other series if you feel confident enough that you can win through, but obviously, being able to have to win one less series is a huge advantage in and of itself. All that to say, we opened Mirage with Faze going on a 7-0 run that honestly had me pretty worried because Navi weren't able to get anything going on their T side. There was no mid presence, their site takes were sloppy, the economy management wasn't good, they were trying their best to play around Wonderful and the op, but he wouldn't get online until later on in the half, so they were struggling to make things happen. And when you consider how good Faze tend to play their T sides, this kind of early deficit just doesn't look good. It leaves you too far behind. You have to end the half strong to have a chance to win this game if you're Navi, and what do? They get their shit together, they win the last 5 rounds of their T half, so they could go into their CT side with some momentum to try and fend off the Faze attack. And fend off they did, as they would hold Faze to only 3 T-half rounds, convincingly win out the second half, and take the final game 13-10, and it all comes back to Wonderful. 13 kills on the first half, 13 kills in the second half, 26 kills for the game, 13 op kills, absolutely insane impact everywhere on both sides, and then we get to the second half, Alexi B comes online, just some great timely kills and trying to abuse Faze around the margins. You have JL making up for the fact that Bit went missing in this final map. And again, there was nothing Faze could do to stop Wonderful on the op. Brokey went from a monster first half with 16 kills to not getting anything going on the T side, finishing with only 4 terrorist kills, so he lost the op battle straight up, which was a huge difference for Faze down the stretch. So Navi, they take the series 2-1, they go to the semis. Faze, they go to the quarterfinals, they're still in it. They're honestly looking up and down. I don't know how safe Faze is to actually make a finals run in this tournament, considering their bracket, something we'll talk about later. But conversely, I think Navi are making a statement at this tournament. They look really strong. This is the best they've looked since the major. I think they're going to have a good shot at making the finals with the way they're playing right now. Following that, we had Vitality taking on G2 in our other elimination match of the day. And frankly, it's a weird series. Some context that needs to be added. m0NESY had visa issues before this event started. He could not make it to London. He showed up the day these games were played, the morning these games were supposed to be played, pretty much got right off the plane and right in his chair to play this series against Vitality. He pretty much went on no food, no sleep, jet lagged, and obviously stressed out from the visa issues. And despite that, he didn't even play that bad for the series, and he still had his great impact, but obviously he wasn't bringing his A game, which definitely affected the long-term outcome, because G2, they need m0NESY to be that #1 player in the world, very similar to how Vitality needs ZywOo to play at his best. So this definitely sucks going into it, because we know we're not going to get m0NESY at his best, so we're deprived of the great matchup of ZywOo and m0NESY both playing great Counter-Strike together, trading insane blows back and forth, which would have made for a much more exciting series. Despite that, the series still was throwing in other aspects, but again, it's a weird one. When you look at the scorelines here, there's 2 straight blowouts and then 1 close game on Anubis. It was very back and forth. We got to see the best and worst of both teams, and on the other side of it, Vitality walk away with a crucial 2-1 victory. So let's break down what went down. We open up on Inferno, traditionally one of G2's strongest, if not the strongest map in the pool, and Vitality walk out and spank them 13-4, which is just odd because G2 looked obviously lost on one of their home maps, and consider the last time Vitality played G2 on Inferno, it was that epic double overtime thriller at IEM Dallas with a stand-in. So now we come in here with the full roster and they get blown out. Is that really all to blame on the fact that m0NESY is jet lagged? I don't know, it's really hard to say. All I know is that G2 typically look really strong on their T-side Inferno, and here it was just nothing doing. They got absolutely locked out of the bomb sites. They were getting dealt the Apex masterclass that he tends to throw out like once per tournament, where he was insane with 15 first half kills leading the way for Vitality while everyone else was kind of asleep at the wheel, and that meant there was no room at all for G2 to work. Again, we look at what they were trying to get going. You had Hunter, 11 kills, trying just to carry the team on his back. m0NESY, 4 kills, 10 deaths, nowhere to be found. Hooksy, Nico, Nexa, they couldn't get anything going either, and their attempts to take banana control, foiled. A control, foiled. I'm surprised they even got 4 rounds. And then we swap sides, and the CT side just has nothing. Vitality run them out of the map. They win every single round, 5-0, 13-4. We're moving on to the next map. Super weird map to open up this series. So we move to Anubis, and I am fearing a complete G2 collapse at this point. m0NESY just looks like he doesn't even know where he is, but we get out there, they start on the T side of Anubis, and they go on a 9-0 run. They look insanely dominant. Nico and ZywOo trading titanic blows. Meanwhile, m0NESY wakes up, finds some great impact early on with the op, and suddenly, wait a minute, we have a game here. Are Vitality going to be able to make a comeback, or are they going to collapse on Anubis? No, they get the last 3 CT rounds. They open up the second half, take the pistol round plus the first 3. They go on a streak of their own of 9 of 10 straight rounds to immediately put them back into the game. And you think, okay, G2's about to have a CT side collapse. They're unable to stop this attack from Vitality, and then they lock it down, come through in the clutch to win the last 3 rounds they need to get the victory and push us to a map 3. A very winnable map for Vitality, all things considered, but honestly, they did well enough to dig themselves out of a deficit that looked like it would be too hard to overcome, and they stayed in it long enough to make it competitive, so that's really all you could ask for. But alas, we were denied an epic conclusion to this series as we rock up to Mirage, and Vitality promptly kicked the door closed in G2's face. It's a 13-5 stomp, and it's not even ZywOo going God mode, it's Apex, leading the way. 18 kills, the top fragger for the server. ZywOo right behind him with 15, Flames with 15, Mezzy with 11, Spinks with 11, everyone above a 1.0 rating. You flash over to the G2 side. Muncie gamely puts up 13 kills, trying to get something going, but it's clear he just doesn't have enough in the tank, and neither does anybody else. It's a dreadful performance from Hooksy and Nexa. The T side calling was flat and uninspired. The CT side mid control was overwhelming from Vitality, and then we swapped sides and G2 ran out of gas. I'm not going to hate on G2 too much for this tournament. I think they are a team in flux. I think we're going to see some big changes during the offseason. And most importantly, Muncie was in a terrible situation, having to show up the day of his matchup, pretty much right off the plane and into the Hell in a Cell. And you can't expect someone to put up those kinds of performances under those circumstances. And with our last matchup of the day, we had Team Spirit taking on Virtus.pro. And honestly, Team Spirit ran Virtus.pro over. It didn't feel like a very competitive series, though the scoreline in the second game might deceive you. The first game we open up on Ancient is 13-4. VP get nothing going. They get 3 rounds on their CT defense. Great. 2 of those are the pistol round plus the next buy where you have economic advantage. And the only other 2 rounds they would win in this game were gun rounds, including the last round and a half, so fair play for that. But then we switch sides and there's just nothing doing. Team Spirit are dominant. They allow no quarter for Virtus.pro, and this map is over before we can even blink. So we're moving on to Dust 2. And the story for Dust 2, the story for the series, is that Donk continues to look insane, and Team Spirit, while inconsistent sometimes, is still backing him up when he needs it most. This is an 11-13 win for Team Spirit, and I think that score belies just how well Spirit played in comparison to Virtus.pro. When you remove Virtus.pro's first half pistol win, which gave them a de facto 3-round lead because the CT economy is that bad, they only won 2 gun rounds on their T half on Dust 2. The CT side hold from Spirit was just that dominant. Donk could not be stopped on the B side, and great timely pushes of mid help alleviate the long A pressure, which meant that Virtus.pro really looked lost in terms of what they could do to try and take some meaningful map control. Once again, something for another video, but Virtus.pro are playing like 2 teams meshed into one. They don't know how to blend in Electronic's aggression with Jane's passiveness, and that means you get neither the best out of either player. And I think that bears out when you look at these kill splits. You have Electronic leading the way for the terror side of VP, and then we swap sides. We get to CT, which is more passive, more room to just save if things go wrong, and what do you know, Jane comes alive and leads the way while Electronic falls off. They're not utilizing their 2 best players in optimal ways at the same time to create the most impact, and the rare times they do, Virtus.pro are winning games. When they're losing games, it's because of this incongruence with how they want to operate the team. They gotta figure this shit out, man, because the roster, the talent is there. If Electronic and Jame can work in synergy, this team will be a threat. But right now they can't. Team Spirit are too cohesive, backed up by too good of a superstar with too good of supporting pieces, and comparatively, the strats, the way that they operate, is just way better than what Virtus.pro brings to the table, which is why they're winning. Virtus.pro aren't out of the tournament, but honestly, I don't expect them to do anything in the playoffs because they're still just divided on what they want to do as a team. And those were our matches for today. Let's take a brief look at our quarterfinal setup for tomorrow. Firstly, we have Faze taking on Vitality, and honestly, I think this matchup is a complete toss-up. Both of these teams have shown inconsistent and dominant performances at this tournament and in recent play, so I think it really depends on what we're going to see at the moment of play. I would expect both these teams to take this to a 3-map set. If ZywOo has godlike form all the way throughout, then obviously I would give Vitality the edge, but there's no reason that Faze can't overwhelm them with their totality of the team being better than some of the other lacking pieces on the Vitality roster. The big thing is I don't want to see a team go missing here. I don't want to see Rops go missing on a map. I don't want to see ZywOo fall asleep at the wheel. I want to see both these teams cranking at full throttle so we really get an idea of who's better. As for our other matchup, we have Astralis taking on Virtus.pro, and flat out the way Virtus.pro are playing right now, I'm going to take Astralis to win this almost guaranteed. It would take an incredible turnaround from VP to really figure out their CT sides and their T side setups to utilize Electronic and Jame effectively enough. This is the type of thing that I think is going to take boot camping over the offseason, and now is not the time in the middle of the tournament to figure it out. And Astralis are cohesive, Device is cooking on all cylinders, he should cook Jame, and overall I expect him to win dominantly. I'm going 2-0 for Astralis on this one. Alright guys, that's it for today. Let me know what you think about the current matchups going into the quarterfinals tomorrow, as well as the match results today. I'll be reading them in the comments and responding as needed. While you're down there, make sure you like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Shout out to my channel members, Justin, Furley, Jesse, Bubblesj. If you want to become a channel member, click the link in the description down below and support me directly. It makes a big difference. Check me out on Twitch, all that good stuff. I'll see you guys tomorrow with another recap. Peace.